welcome to the next episode of the CAPB podcast. Delighted to have Michael Hesketh from Hesketh Healthcare on the podcast. Now, Mike and I know each other. We've known each other, I guess, for about 30 years because we were in high school together. I joined the army when I was 16 after GCSEs. You went your way, Mike, and then we reconnected when I realised that you'd joined the Navy and have done some pretty badass stuff since then, mate.
Yeah, it was. I joined the Navy as a dentist. But when we both left school, you went off and joined the army, and I went to a really posh private school up the road in Colwyn Bay. Do you know Rydal in North Wales? Yeah. So, and I switched from playing football to rugby with the guys there, and so that was quite enlightening because it sort of opened my eyes to quite a different scenario to Prestatyn High School that we were at with. I think it was the biggest state school in Wales at the time.
Yeah.
And whilst we did all right at school, you go into these private schools and it's just another level. But yeah, I did 2 years of private school. I got a science scholarship. Would you believe it? So yeah, no, it was interesting going up the road on the train. But yeah, did that for 2 years, and then I was off to Leeds University to be a dentist.
So Matt mentioned there that you joined the Navy. So can you just tell us, take it back to that decision and your military career?
Yeah, well, I don't know if Matt, you ever met my brother. My brother was with the Reserve Marines on Merseyside, and he was going through the commander course, but got glandular fever and collapsed, actually, and he was really poorly with it on one of the tests. And so, but he'd already talked about being with the Royal Marine Commandos, and then his best mate, a chap that you will know, I won't say his name, went Special Forces, and the two of them were talking to me in the pub, and we had a beer, and he was talking about, he said, I think the Royal Marines have dentists. And he said, if you want something a bit more interesting than just going into sort of four walls being a clinician, why don't you join the Navy and then get posted to one of the commando units, 40, 42, or 40, 42, and 45 commando. And each one of those keep their dentists, whereas the Army lost all their battalion dentists. And so I went to Leeds University just as a civvy. I was 18 years old, left North Wales, went to live in Leeds, and started a 5-year degree to be a dentist. And then in my second year, I went to sit the Admiralty Interview Board and become the sort of a Royal Navy officer cadet. And they paid my tuition fees. And then they paid, which would be a lot nowadays. And then they also paid me a salary. And I still managed to come out with loads of debt, but there we go. I think I just drank my way through uni. But for the last 3 years of a dentistry degree as a civvy, I was paid by the Royal Navy as an officer, didn't have to do anything, up in Leeds, so well away from the sea. And then I went down to become a Navy dentist with the Royal Navy. And then they already knew that I was pinged for getting into the commander units, and you have to go through the commando course to do that. So I was on this sort of trajectory, and I was getting sort of positioned to be with the commander units, all right away from the beginning, essentially. Yeah, so I was 22 when I went down to Portsmouth, and I became a dentist there.
That's mad. That from a conversation with like friends, they were like, "Did you know that?" And then you fast forward 6-7 years, and it pans out that way. How did you find being down south and going? Did you go through the commando course then?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I went to I did Ponte Carlo, so it got really warm down there from Leeds, and I never went back. I only had 2 weeks off after my 5-year degree, so I never really got a break because the Navy were paying me. And then you do a 1-year probation period, so to speak, for a dentist, like a junior doctor, and underneath a senior dentist, and he just sort of gets you. You're safe when you come out of dental school. You can drive the car, but you're not really, efficient. So then they take you for a year, and I did that at HMS Sultan with the nuclear engineers down there, all the artificers, and enjoyed that year living in HMS Sultan, getting to know the military. What was odd though was I got given a uniform, and an officer's uniform after 2 weeks, and 2 weeks prior I was on the lash in Leeds as a student, and then I get given a Navy uniform with a rank on it. I think I went in as a lieutenant. So, and this chap had to genuinely dress me in the officer's mess, and he said, right, okay, if someone salutes you, you do this, because I had to walk from the officer's mess to the dental centre in Portsmouth, because I was on hold over there for about a few months before I could go to Dartmouth to do my officer training. So they said, if someone salutes you, they do this. And I was like, all right then. So I walked with him, and he was like a naval captain or something. So everyone was freaking saluting. And then as we walked through, got into the dental practice, and all the nurses there were just ripping me. They were like, what? You haven't done any training and you're wearing a uniform? I was like, just waiting around for a couple of months, being a dentist, and, you know, and just waiting to go to Dartmouth to do normal basic tarts and vicars course, they call it. Yeah. And we just did the first term of officer training, ironing and all that. So yeah, but I mean, it was a good basis in leadership and some theory about naval leadership and command. Dartmouth was good. It's just like going back to the private school.
There can't be many dentists that have gone through the commando course.
No, there wasn't. Well, it was a good, and count them on one hand really. But when you go on the commando course, there's obviously all ranks, and there's a lot of engineers, 5'9" commando, 2'9". They all go through it, and then there's snipers, pilots, divers, Gurkhas. So when you come off the all arms commando course, there's always every cap badge there coming off the 30-miler, and they start talking to you about what your career ambitions are. And I was like, I only basically know one end of the rifle from another. I'm an average height of a man, so I can basically do most things physically, and I can switch off from the pain, but I'm not the best soldier in the world. So there was quite a lot of good soldiers that took me through, that helped me through the commando course.
But mate, you join the Navy to give healthcare and to look after people's teeth. So I imagine there's more value in you as a dentist than there is you as fighting troops.
Yeah, there is, but I eventually got given 40 commando. I mean, the commando trained dentists at 4.2 and 4.5 are already in situ, and so I became commando trained. Did training with Ant Middleton in the Congo, Sierra Leone in the jungle of Sierra Leone, and then there was a NEO in the Congo. So I was actually being a dentist and did some jungle training down there, and then flew back into the UK, and with Prince Harry was on our beat up for he was on exchange with 40 Commando. But the idea is when you're in the commando unit, obviously everyone's first and primarily unit is a green-lidded, you know, soldier, so to speak. There are sort of rules with medics and dentists, but because of my training, I ended up doing the medics course, not the full military medics course, but I did pre-hospital trauma life support with the ambulance service down in Cornwall, where the mechanism of injury was car crashes, and I came top out of all the medics. And you forget how much you know as a dentist about medical issues. So I felt that gave me confidence, and obviously gave the lads confidence when we were going into Afghan. And then I did battlefield advanced trauma life support with all my doctor mates, which was more advanced, getting fluids into people through bones in their chest and stuff. So you end up becoming basically like a paramedic with a commander green lid, but your job title's dentist. And so Afghan was training in the jungle before we went to Afghan, and then Afghan, obviously, our soldiers, and got the rounds down. Got loads of rounds down. Got shot at, blown up. Fucking every road move we went on got hit by something.
Herrick were you on?
It was in 2000. Herrick 7, 2007. It was, yeah, Herrick 7. Yeah, it was really early. It was really shit. Really nasty. And so, yeah, that time, like, there was a lot of good guys, you know, catching it up and getting injured. And yeah, so I spent the first 3 months in a bastion as a dentist, basically, and then casualty liaison officer. So everyone got blown up. I stood at the end of their bed. So, but yeah, as a dentist, it's a bit of a surreal experience, really.
I was just about to say, it's like, I was Med Corps, so I was, I was Royal Army Medical Corps. I served 23 years in the Med Corps, so I understand entirely where you're coming from a clinical point of view. Yeah. I used to teach on the battles course, actually, but it's and also from the experience of doctors and dentists and clinicians, like even going to Kenya and doing things like that, we would take dentists with us, we would do outreach stuff. It is rare, I mean, certainly less so now, but it's rare for the clinicians to go and do the kind of stuff you were doing on an optional. You know what I mean? They were usually, doctors were deployed to be doctors, surgeons were deployed to be surgeons, dentists were deployed to be dentists.
Yeah.
So that kind of opportunity and experience must have been incredible, mate.
Yeah, it was. I had a portable American dental kit that would fit in a hold all. So I chucked that on the Chinook. Then I had a medics pack, which you'll know, one of the black packs with all of that in, which was mine from my courses. I think it was a dynamic unit doctor that we had, basically, a guy called Dave Roscoe, who's head of recovery at Headley Court, I think, at the moment. And he was very dynamic, and he pushed us. He pushed me. He was like, come on, because you're doing commando course, you're going to go outside your comfort zone and you're going to go out on the ground. And I'd been with the lads for 3 years, 4 years, so I knew them all really well, being in the jungle with them. So they were very confident and happy with me. And I ended up doing so much medical stuff that the dentistry took a back seat, really. There was an Army Dental Corps deployment into Bastion, and they did all that. And so, and because I was under 40 commando and had the trust of the CO, he was just like, right, you're officer in control of outreach, and you're going to go out into the valleys now. And so sometimes we'd go and try and do a reassurance patrol, but then there would be a kinetic patrol, and I'd just literally just switch from trying to set up a medical shorer to then the next day going on, advanced contacts and stretcher bearing and trying to, loads of injuries, but trying to put people on the helicopter as opposed to meeting them off Bastion.
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like, the old adage, no plan survives contact. It's like you'd have deployed in a dental pit, but when you're out there, if you've got the confidence of your chain of command, then you're going to be moved into different roles. Yeah. Paul to Afghanistan, I've deployed to Afghanistan, we've both deployed to Iraq, and we've done a number of different roles, and we often chat about the different things that you get to do, whether that's through choice or not through choice. You know what I mean?
I think there's a shortage of people. They under-resourced it, didn't they? Especially in the early days, they under-resourced it, and it just felt like everyone was all hands to the pump. There was literally no one left in Bastion. The whole of 40 commando was deployed. That's why I was casualty liaison, because there was no one left. All the medics were out, all the doctors were out, Padre was out, everyone was out, and it was just, oh, Mike, you vaguely know your way around the hospital. Can you stand at the end of the beds and tell us how the lads are?
I think one of the things, and we'll skate away from your military career shortly, but I just want to touch on one thing. The casualty liaison officer job, which you said was a hideous 3 months for you, arguably, what an important role you were doing, though, because without that, hideous for your point of view, because you're constantly dealing with people who are in the worst state, but having a liaison officer to convey information, to link with the families, link with the evacuation chain, I think it's such a key role. One of those ones that I imagine you reflect back on and think, yeah, I did a good job there. It wasn't as exciting as some of the other stuff, but when you reflect back on it, what a key job.
Yeah, no, I think there was value in it, and we didn't go back to families, but what we did do was we went back out to the lads on the ground, because they'd just been in the firefight. And so they immediately wanted to know, because the last they saw was their mate getting taken away on a Chinook. They wanted to know what injuries. And then I would just keep the CO and the ops guys when they, what limbs they'd lost or what body parts they'd lost, and then when they were going to wake up in Selly Oak, and then it was passed back. So yeah, it was basically keeping and then I'd do the brief in the evenings to 30 gnarly, military officers who were in control of everything, the air as well, and they just want to know, did the lads survive? Did they, what happened to them? And it was, it was, but it took its toll. It was a horrendous job. Hated it. Yeah, but I preferred being out on the ground. I just genuinely preferred being out on the ground. That's not out of just trying, warmongering, but I was just actually, it was so shit that I preferred just being out on the ground and actually putting them on the helicopters and letting the anaesthetists deal with them on the helicopters, get fluids into them.
So, Mike, from obviously a busy, what seems a busy military career that you had, where did the idea come from for your business today as it stands? It's like, was it a natural progression, like, right, I'm pushing the button, I'm doing it, or what? How did that come about, mate?
It was to control the money. So that sounds horrendous, the military environment, but I didn't get paid properly. I was moonlighting and I didn't get paid properly in London by another dentist, and they took money offers and stuff. And I was like to my wife, I said, God, the military environment was easy getting you paid properly. And then when you come out, you don't get paid properly as a dentist. You think, Jesus, and there's loads of deductions and stuff. And so I just said to my wife, we went to look at a practice to buy. I bought a dental practice and I sold it for a few £1 million. So that's the sort of story. 5 years later, after leaving the military, but I went to look at a few options. There was an old and bold one in Reading. And I just said to my wife, came out and said, if I go in there and I buy a partnership in there, that's the end of my life. And she said, well, let's not do that. So she's pregnant with our first daughter, and we moved back down to the West Country, Taunton, where 40 Commando are. We still had the house down there. And moved back down there, and there was a practice for sale, and it was cheap enough. I had about 20 grand of savings. That was it. And we just borrowed the money from the bank, spoke to a broker, and it was just to control the money, Paul, to be honest. I just got not ripped off, isn't it, like a grand or whatever, but I just realised that I wanted to be in control. And I thought I'd always taken over things and been the manager or the captain or the officer. And so I just thought, well, I might as well be in charge and give it a crack. I've only got 20 grand to lose. So that, nothing to lose. Did have a little bit of a hangover from Afghan, I think, but I didn't really know, no diagnosis or care or anything like that about it. But I think I had a bit of a devil-may-care attitude. When you see something so bad, and then I went and worked in head and neck cancer surgery and things like that, I thought, I'm only going to lose 20 grand and a bit of embarrassment for a business failing. But lo and behold, everything taught to me, all the formal training in the military, everything that I'd watched led me, and this is one thing I want to get across the veterans community, which is why this podcast is important, is it led me to this situation where I was very confident in leading a team, very confident with risk, mitigating risk. And then my wife was involved in business already, so she had a good experience of that. And I thought, well, why not us? Why not us? And we're going to be a lot more ethical and fair than the chap who ripped us off. So then that was it. And it was as simple as that. And it's a dental practice, so we're not reinventing the wheel. And I mean, there's a shortage of dentists. So, what can go wrong? Probably, you got to learn a lot quickly about business. But I was willing to do that. And so, yeah, the military was very helpful for that, really. And that's what I'd say to a lot of veterans is, what have you really got to lose when you come out? If you especially if you've done like 4 or 5 years and you haven't got any sort of assets or stuff, you go, well, have a crack, because you probably got the skills, you're just lacking confidence.
Right. When you set the business up, did you go in there with the intention of, well, I'm going to do the dentist bit because I can do that, and my wife's going to do the business bit? Or did you want to think, no, I want to lean into the leadership of running a business. I want that bit.
Yeah, no, I was doing the leadership. I'm okay with the awkward conversation. My wife hates conflict. So I did the leadership bit and talked to the staff and generated it. My wife did the brand and then the sort of finance side of it, the stuff I didn't understand, invoicing, credit notes, things like that. You just don't pick that up in the military. And then the clinical wide, I was very well calibrated as a dentist. The military put you through a lot of courses as a clinician, as well as leadership courses. So I used those clinical courses to develop the business. And I just simply said to the dentists that we recruited, who were fantastic, said high standards. That's it. High standards. We're not cutting any corners. High standards. I'm not going to work like some of these cheap practices, cheap materials, not training the staff. And everyone's got to be on the course at any one time. I used project plans like they used at 40 Commando. I took a lot of the tools from the military into a dental practice, and all you've got to be is better than the other practices around you. And a lot of them don't have that level of resources and training. And, people are always going to have teeth. So we had 10 practices within a mile of us, and it was a very happy covered market. But by the end of it, we were getting 200 new private patients a month, but pre-COVID. And most practices get about 20, 30 new private patients a month. We were getting 200. And it was built on a culture and an ethos of high standards. And then you attract people to want to work for you. Because a lot of veterans think, oh, will anyone want to work for me? And I'd say, well, people are attracted to a positive environment. And so you create a positive environment of healthcare and people come and work for you. It's really not a difficulty.
It's amazing. It's an amazing story, mate, to be honest. And I think what's really cool about it is the leadership part. Because I see an industry, I work in the defence industry now after leaving the military. I see that there is in certain areas I worked before that I was worked in financial services, is the leadership thing is something that we as veterans take for granted. You think, well, someone's a whatever, executive, whatever, they must be a really good leader. They must have done the relevant pathway, the relevant courses, the relevant stuff to be a leader. They must do. Because in the military, you can't, you promote, And then when you promote, you need to consolidate that promotion with a course. Then you promote and you consolidate that promotion with a course, and you promote and you consolidate that promotion with a course. Now, don't get me wrong. I absolutely get that there are people who are sitting high ranks within the military, all of the services, who are shithouses. But I also, there is a standardization in the military, where within industry and civvy street, there just isn't. There's like a huge gap in the leadership piece. One of the things I found was, like, my wife worked for the NHS. She works for the police now. And in the NHS, she was a certain band, and an opportunity came for a job at the next band up. And if you applied for it, that's how you were to get the job and promoted. It wasn't like well, you're the best at that grade, so we're going to promote you into that grade. It was, this is the band. If you apply, then you'll get interviewed, and if you get the job. So what you had was people who were just jumping from band because they were applying for jobs, as opposed to people promoted on talent.
Yeah. No, I think the leadership element, we've got to be careful as military to not focus too much on leadership, because there is a cliche that lead starts and finishes with leadership in the military. But you're right, there is. If you think about a dentist, they go to do their degree, and then they go into surgery, and then they're being busy clinicians, and they have to work because they're mainly self-employed, so they have to work to earn money, for their families. Whereas I was a salary for 7 years with the military, and 50% of my time was done on personal development, in leadership training courses at Chivener and all sorts of different places. And then half my time was being a clinician. So I was paid, but I had half my time towards leadership development and professional development. And that's just not available. So it's not necessarily the individual's fault. It's just not available to them in their career pathway. I worked hard on the leadership element. I deliberately designed 4 pillars for running a dental practice, and same is true for pharmacies and opticians, really. And the first one is leadership. I always talk about that. And then the second one is brand, like knowing your culture, your brand, of where you position it. Then there's an infrastructure check, just to make sure that they are investing in the right infrastructure. They've got the actual, the right facilities in place. And the final one is a financial commando control, is understanding their cash flow. So I see leadership as one of 4. Because if you get 80% of those 4 right, you're okay. Some people have a really strong brand, terrible leadership, they can't keep a team. And then they call me and they say, and we don't really have a problem with keeping a team. Like every business, when you put change in place, you always lose staff, especially when you're trying to drive it to higher standards. Because a lot of the practices that the ones I bought, we wanted to improve it. So, and then the people that are there in the previous standards, they'll either come with you on the journey or won't. And a lot do, but some don't come with you on the journey, and they move on to practices where it's a little bit more chilled out.
I found that a lot, that change within the military is quite easily managed, because within the military you're quite reactive, and we know that shit can change on a spin of a coin, and then you just go, right, okay, I'm now going down this route, or I'm now got to clear this, or I've now got to do that. In civvy street, as it were, change is quite difficult, especially if people are set in their ways. And Matt mentioned before about standardization. The military standardizes everything from fitness to how you walk to literally how you dress. In civvy street, it's not, and how you can't standardize change. It's very difficult, I find, especially in the work that we do, or what I do, that change isn't always managed the best it could be.
No, it can't. And I've got some top tips for guys on that. Is don't take it personally. So you want to change your business and you want to improve it, probably, as most people do, to improve the profit or whatever. I say refer to it as a third party. So, and the way that I describe it to people is that the ship sets sail from Portsmouth, goes to the Caribbean, does 2 years over there, and it comes back with a different crew. But the ship has the same ethos, has the same culture, has the same mission. And so no one is indispensable within this culture, this HMS, whatever your business is. And when they hear that, you realize that you're in a strong place from negotiating points of view on salaries and terms and conditions, but you're also creating them and as a defense around your team. And then you say you're on board the ship keeps sailing, and we are heading to higher standards. And I'm lucky in that I run a consultancy now as well, helping other practice owners. I actually see some really innovative business models. people doing stuff way in advance of what we do. And you think, okay, I'm going to bring some of that and put that into my business. And I realize that change management is going to be difficult. But then I say to them, to my team, I say, look, this is out there in the industry and it's cutting edge, and we need to bring that to our practice. And you've got to be fair to people getting a chance to learn and pay for training and things, but ultimately they've got to get on with it. And I think people are a bit too cautious with change. But you blame the third person. It's not what Mike wants. It's my dental practice currently is called Dartmoor Dental, and it's what Dartmoor Dental needs. Oh, okay. So it's not what Mike wants. It's what our business wants. And a lot of people small business owners take it very personally. And I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome from veterans, and they can take it quite personally if something doesn't go quite right for them. And I'd say, well, just talk about it in the third person. What does that entity need, that organization need to do its 2-year mission to the Caribbean? Okay, it needs X, Y, and Z. Right. Okay, can we do that better? And lo and behold, you end up doing it better than your competitors because you're relentless. A lot of veterans are resilient and relentless at improvement. And I am a bit like that. I will just keep on improving, like the smallest things all the time. And it's a bugbear, but I think the differentiator between us and people that own dental practices around us. They try, but they're not as relentless.
Mate, I think taking your story and taking that out of dentistry and putting it into other business, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's that willingness to change, isn't it? And willingness to try new stuff. We've spoken to a number of people on the podcast who have gone into business, and some of these have gone into business like starting on the kitchen table, and now they've got, a business where they're turning over, hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. And it was because they took those risks, because they were willing to do something outside of what was just normally getting done. And I think it's fascinating.
There's ways to mitigate the risk as well, and the key thing for any veteran listening to it is cash flow. So cash flow is everything. So, you run out of cash, you die. And a lot of people will talk about turnover, big money. A lot of people talk about profit, but profit's really for accountants and when you want to sell the business. But cash flow is different because the capital that you repay on your loans is not part of your profit. And there's a lot of tricks you can use in accounting purposes to move profit. And again, it's useful for the banks, it's of interest, but cash is where will keep you awake at night if you don't have enough of it. So it's being well laden with cash. You don't need too much. You just need to watch your expenditure and focus on driving turnover, but not at the expense of cash. You can grow too quickly and you can, get through your cash too quickly. And so there's ways to monitor success, and so that it does de-risk it for people. And if they've got a good business idea, business model, even if it's just, a normal industry like dentistry and they want to own their own, plumbing business or whatever, there's loads of tools out there. And the key one is cash flow. And they just watch cash flow. And the other one is having a bit of gumption and saying, well, I have been promoted in the military. I have done a good job. I've got good reports. Well, you've probably had more training than most other plumbers in your town on being organized. And a business actually isn't anything. It isn't a thing. It's an organization of resources, whether it's human, finance, or skills. So by definition, people in the military are organized. So if you're the most organized plumber in your town, you'll probably win. You don't need to have the snazziest brand, the best expenses on marketing. You just need to answer the phone faster than other people via multiple channels, watch your cash, and then all of a sudden you'll have 5 vans with loads of lads. And you'll be like, Jesus, I'm so busy, I can't get on the tools. And that's what happened to us at Exeter. I was on the tools at the beginning in our dental practice, our first one. I was on the tools to begin with, and I thought, right, that's what every dentist needs to do. And sooner or later, we went to open 7 days a week, had 7 chairs, and all of a sudden I'm off the tools because I'm trying to run this beast 7 days a week. And we're getting in hundreds of new patients, and the turnover is going through the roof, but also eventually there's a tipping point and the profit then kicks in, and then the cash starts to rapidly build. And that was when we sold it. And then we sold it to Bupa and went traveling around the world. And so, yeah, we took a year out and went traveling around the world with the kids when they were little. So that's the best time, because I felt like I just worked continuously from school all the way through the military. and doing the business. The business was 5 years for us, and then we went traveling. So there's rewards out there for veterans that doesn't have to be sort of up towards their retirement age. You can once you've got the skills to build a business, acquire one, divest of the business, you understand how banks work and they want to lend you money, and you understand how cash flow works, then all of a sudden branding works, and all of a sudden, you've already got the leadership skills. So you've already got a big piece of the pie. You can then use the business to create wealth for you and your family. And that's what I always try and do. I'm not trying to be the next Jeff Bezos of buying loads of dental practices, but what we are doing is trying to create a couple of million equity in each business and then sell it at some point. Now, the current one that I've got, we're going to keep whilst we've got the kids in school, so we'll keep it for another 15 years. But ultimately, at some point, all businesses are sold, but it's a wide opportunity for veterans listening to this to really, push on in industries that are out there already.
Yeah, like it's fascinating, mate. And I think one of the things I really like is your pillars. Coming up with an approach where you think this is what I'm going to stand for. Paul and I were having a conversation this morning about the core values of the military. It was for a bit of work Paul was doing, and we couldn't remember them. And then we could very quickly because it's bred into you. And then you think about how that reflects into your work. And for you to take a lot of what you experience going through the military. And by the way, how long did you serve in the Navy, Mike?
8 years, 22 to 30.
So you served 8 years, but just from what you've told us, what an 8 years it was for a dentist. So busy, so kinetic, such experience in the jungle and deployments and all the rest of it. And then to take those skills and make it work with your own model. I think it's brilliant, mate. It's not just leaning on the fact that, well, I'm a dentist, so I'm going to go do dentistry. I'm a dentist with a particular skill set and leadership that I'm going to try and make a difference. And yeah. I think it's phenomenal, mate.
Yeah, we're at the stage now. Thank you. We're at the stage now where we're doing a bigger campaign on NHS care because there's no NHS dentists. So we happen to have a contract in this practice, and we're doing a big push on that in the Southwest to get children seen. So we've got onto the BBC, and I think that's where we picked each other up from recently. And we're trying to do some community good as well, because again, why not us? Because there is a point, Matt, when we get into our 40s and it ends up being we are the guys with the qualifications and the experience. We are the parents, we are our parents. And then you go, oh, okay, so we're in charge now, and let's see if we can make a difference. And I would say to most veterans, it's like, why not you? Why not you to push on? And you don't need to risk the whole house on it if you've got a family and kids and things. But in reality, how much you're probably going to be able to get a decent job anyway. And it's a business. Businesses work most of the time, but sometimes fail. And people understand that, and it's not a great, it's not a great embarrassment if they don't work. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And so then it's just taking a practical view of it, and no one's dying. I used to say that quite a lot. I used to say, no one's dying, so let's just see how it works. And it was between age 30 and 35 that we built that business up. It was turning over about $500,000, and we took 2.5 million, and then a big corporate came in and bought us. And so for a few million, and anyone can do that. So from the age of 22 to 30, you had 20 grand in savings. And from the age of 30 to 35, you end up with family wealth that's almost like a lottery win. And it was all built off the back of the military training. And I still swear that all those good eggs that we meet, along our careers are perfectly capable of being more dynamic. It's just self-doubt, which is real. And also you can get a coach. And I would say to them, get a coach. We paid for a coach in the first year. We paid for a coach in whatever field you're in. Don't be frightened of paying for a coach. A coach is brilliant because they'll just say, don't do that, do this. And what we're good at is following the instructions. So like 2-footed landings, things like that, climb with your legs, not your arms, all that stuff. I just used to say to the coach, what do you want me to do? I used to be in a room with other practice owners and used to argue the toss with him. I was like, what do you want me to do? And he was like, do this, open 7 days a week. I was like, all right, I'll open 7 days a week. Okay, because I paid you. And he told me, open 7 days a week. Okay. And we just, and then we simplified the rota and we simplify it. And a lot of people overcomplicate things and no one's dying. So yeah, it's a big opportunity for everyone in every sector out there. But get yourself a little coach, just, get a bit of help.
Mike, I just want to echo what Matt said. Your story has been so intriguing. I mean, I've been very sort of mute through the pod because I've just been like hanging on your every word. It's fantastic from starting high to where you are now, right? And this is the point where we kind of start to wrap up the podcast now. And this is the point where we say, okay, Mike, give us your sort of elevator pitch. Like, what is it? What is Hesketh Healthcare, and why is it so brilliant?
Okay. Well, Hesketh Healthcare is my consultancy arm. I work with 5 practice owners at any one time on a bespoke basis, and I coach and consult with them and get them into rapid growth of their practice, growing 300,000-400,000 a year, eventually turning a profit and always being cash flow positive. And then I have an accountancy arm, and my accountancy business then, because I realize a lot of accountants don't really know what they're doing. And so I get my accountants to look after my clients, who then I know then that they've got the right numbers for their family business. So that's that. Dartmoor Dental is a dental practice, which is another testing ground of what we've done in the past with Exeter. And it is a dynamic dental practice down in Devon and Cornwall. We are overwhelmed with patients, as you can imagine, because of the shortage of dentists, but it's a great place to work. And we do treat a lot of vulnerable people in society, and we also treat a lot of veterans. I have a campaign through a padre that I know where we restore and help one veteran at any time for free, and we restore their mouth, and that's via a commando trained padre friend of mine. It is a heavily military environment down in Plymouth, so lots of ex-military come and work for us, and they know I've got a army hygienist working for me, and she's brilliant. It's absolutely great. So yeah, that's my sort of elevator pitch. That's what I do, and and I just help people around the country with their businesses.
Mike, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a pleasure to reconnect. But also it's fascinating to see what veterans can go on to achieve.
Yeah.
Nothing's guaranteed here, but like you said, the military and military service, regardless of whether it's a couple of years or a full career, gives us a skill set that we can implement in regardless of business. And one of the things I really like, the takeaway I really like is about being organised. And when you talk about a plumber, because I've moved house about a year ago, and we've moved from North Wales to Gloucestershire, and basically everything needed doing in the house, everything. And the amount of times we were let down by people. And it's like the people who are still in my phone now were the people who didn't let me down. Yeah. They're the people who were like, I need a plumber. And he said he was going to be here at a time, and he was here at that time. He said it was going to cost an amount, and it was that amount. And I think that level of organisation buys you credibility versus the fact that I've been a plumber for 35 years. Do you know what I mean?
You'll never run out of work. If you're organised, you win the war. It's logistics that win the war, gentlemen.
This is true.
I love it.
And engineers. Engineers.
That's very true. We do. Yeah.
Don't, Mike. Don't.
Right, I'm down on that all day now. That's brilliant.
Thank you so much, Mike.
No worries, guys.